of dialogue is to handle issues and subjects and problems that are unknown, that you don't find in a book, that there isn't some expert that can tell you all about it. Okay, that's the proper use of the human mind. So anyhow, those are a few preliminary observations of what dialogue is. We went more in depth in the science of dialogue last month in September. In the month of October, the overarching theme is atonement. This is the month of atonement. And so atonement, just like dialogue, is a science, the purpose of which is to correct things that are wrong. Now, this kind of a topic actually points to the first step of atonement. The first step of atonement is to point out the wrong. Well, I mean, I don't think I think it's kind of obvious that if somebody's waging genetic warfare, biological warfare in the world, that's I think most people would agree that's wrong. I mean, anybody think that's right? Evidently, somebody does think it's right because they're doing it, right? So someone actually thinks that's the thing to do. That's the best thing to do. Maybe what we're doing is we're pointing out how wrong it is. So let's make sure that we're all on the same page. And the way we usually do that when we start these sessions is we make sure we understand what all the words actually mean. Not what we think it means, but what the words actually mean. So that then when we use them collectively, we mean the same thing. If you have a definition of a word and I have a different definition, we're using the same word, we may think we're on the same page, but actually we'll end up confused because you mean something that I don't mean, I mean something that you don't mean. So you're a biology major, right?
Yes.
Isn't that what you said? Okay, tell us what a virus is. So we know what we're actually talking about here.
Well, I can't really remember the book. Dictionary term?
But the book isn't here anyway.
Okay. Well, a virus is just, in my opinion, some type of ailment that goes down to the cellular level.
Okay. All right. An ailment that goes down to the cellular level.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, you're a biology major too. Yes, you are. You said you were a physician's assistant major. That means you deal with viruses every day. So tell us what a virus is.
Okay, so a virus is like a pathogen in which like
Pathogen.
Yes.
That sounds like a big word.
Okay, a pathogen is something that something that comes in and does harm to the body.
Okay. Okay. The agent of a disease is a pathogen.
Now, a virus, again, kind of basically a virus is what comes in and takes over a cell and puts its own genetic material within the cell to like kind of harm it. Does that
To replicate itself within the cell.
with this harmful genetic material? Did I say that right?
I don't know.
Oh,
Do you understand what she just said?
Yeah.
I guess you did it right then.
Dr. D. Muhammad, MD, what is a virus?
What is a virus? Okay, that actually is a good question. A virus is basically a protein coat that contains within it either RNA or DNA. So if I showed you a picture of a virus, it could look like this. That would be a representation of what a virus would look like. Its outer coat is proteins, usually just one, or very simple protein structure. And then inside is the genetic material. Most viruses are DNA, some viruses are RNA. And she said, you said, something happens on the cellular level. So if this would be the size of a virus, what would be the size of a living cell that this virus would infect? Would the cell be bigger or smaller than a virus? Bigger. How much bigger?
I'm not sure, was it like 10 times?
Maybe 10,000 times bigger.
Okay.
So if this was the size of a virus, then the cell that it would infect would be probably as big as this building. And as someone said, the virus takes over the genetic material, probably the genetic machinery, the DNA of the cell, and causes the cell to manufacture more viruses. So here's one virus that infects a cell, and within a matter of sometimes of literally minutes, you have millions or tens of millions of viral particles bursting out of that cell into the bloodstream. And each viral particle is doing what? It's looking for another cell. And then the process repeats itself, and then another couple of minutes, now you have 10 million more viral particles, each one looking for another cell. And on it goes until. Huh? Well, usually that doesn't happen. I mean, how many times in your life have you been infected with a virus? One rule of dialogue is, dialogue is a word that is often associated with drama. So in drama, there's dialogue, right? What kind of actor would you be if you were on the stage mumbling your lines? People would boo you and they would walk out. So when you're in a dialogue section, be dramatic. You have to speak so people can hear you. You're sitting in the back of the room. You said something about a minute and a half ago. We couldn't hear you up here.
Yes, sir. I'll say I've been infected with the virus at least 3 or 4 times.
Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
But a virus, like a fever,
How many times do you think you've been infected with a virus?
I couldn't count.
Yeah, that's a better answer.
You just rolling around with viruses?
Yeah.
You're infected with probably several hundred to several thousand viruses right now.
Right.
As a matter of fact, if you weren't infected with some of these viruses, you wouldn't even be alive. Some of them are very beneficial to you and help you to live.
Well, that's what you're saying. So viruses can be a good thing.
Some of them are, probably most of them are. There's only a few of them that get out of hand. So name some of the typical viruses that everybody in this room right now is infected with. Yeah, that you're infected with right now. And if I drew blood from you and I did the right kind of test, I would detect these viruses present in your body. So name one.
Influenza.
Influenza, sure. So probably everybody in this room probably has had hundreds of different influenza viruses in your lifetime. And all of them that you ever had are still in your body. All of them.
HPV-1.
Well, maybe a lot of people do have that.
I think it's 95% of the population.
Yeah, it's a herpes virus.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you say, well, all the herpes viruses, there's a whole huge family of herpes viruses. So probably if you said the whole family, 100% of everybody here has at least one herpes virus. Probably many.
It's not.
Did I see someone say it?
Bronchitis? Is that the virus?
Well, bronchitis is inflammation of the bronchus. It could be caused by a virus, but it could also be caused by a bacteria or a fungus. So it could be. So there are viruses that are respiratory viruses. One that was in the news not too long ago was called SARS. Any chickenpox, yeah.
So every time you get a vaccine, don't they give you the virus they're vaccinating? So each time you
Yeah,
have,
almost all, well, not every vaccine is exactly like that, but most of them, yes.
so whatever you've ever done a vaccine for, you actually are now carrying the virus.
Exactly,
So,
exactly. So if you wanted to start an epidemic, the first thing that you would do is vaccinate everybody against the thing that you're trying to prevent, and you would actually start it. That sounds crazy, doesn't it?
you know.
One more time for me. One more time.
If you were trying to jumpstart an epidemic, the first thing that you would do is give a vaccine for the thing that you're trying to prevent. Then you would make sure that every single person in the population has that virus in their body. Then what happens?
They're back.
Wait.
No, I was just thinking of an example. In order to get into Howard, or in order to come to Howard, I had to get vaccinated for chickenpox. I had never had chickenpox growing up. I didn't get vaccines growing up, so my mother did something, so we didn't have to take them. And so coming here, those last days were like, you can't come, you don't get like, it was chickenpox or meningitis vaccine. Yeah, a TB test. So I go to the doctor and I'm like, I've never had it. I think I'm going to get it. And you're like, no way. And of course, freshman year at Howard, I'm like walking around with chickenpox only on my chest. So like, long story short, God, this was right here, That's like rough, only on the chest though. But I did end up with the chickenpox that I had never had, because they gave it to me.
Well, you may have had it and you got it again, or different type. There's all different types.
Yeah, well, they gave you the other type.
So, you know, measles, mumps, chickenpox, cold, the common cold, influenza, herpes, cold sores, these are all viral illnesses. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And we live in a world that is full of viruses. Every time you take a deep breath, you just breathe in viruses. Every time you touch anything, you just touch viruses, and they're in your food. There are some viruses that infect plant cells and not animal cells, and some viruses that infect humans and they don't infect animals or plants. And, you know, so what does that tell us? If you act,
Viruses are common.
viruses are common, but what else is common? Well, what are we talking about here?
The body is naturally able to heal itself in the face of various pathogens and viruses.
Okay, we'll come to that point in a second, but what is the larger point? What is the larger point that viruses are natural and they're natural, yes, and necessary and sometimes good and
Accurate, a great way, like a great weapon to be used, like they're
great weapon
consistent.
to, well, hold that. That's,
Hold on.
what are we talking about when we stand back from everything? Animal viruses, plant viruses, human viruses, you know, what are we talking about?
Is it like that they evolve?
They evolve, yeah, but like plants, animals, but what are we talking about? What is the big thing that we're talking about? What's the big subject that's so obvious, it's staring you in the face and you can't think of it? Life, exactly. We're talking about life. We live on a living planet. We live on a planet that is full of life everywhere, on every level. Some sophisticated, like us, we claim to be sophisticated, and some life like viruses that are so primitive that there's a strong scientific school of thought that says viruses really aren't alive. They might not actually be alive. It just depends on what your definition of life is. If you have a comprehensive definition of life and all of the functions of life, viruses don't do most of the things that living things do. If they're alive, they're a kind of a parasite because they can't do anything on their own. They have to take over the machinery of another living cell and commandeer whatever that cell is doing, subvert it into the replication of the virus.
I guess, you know, by that point, like, isn't that what everyone does? That we commandeer the planet and we only survive as long as this planet survives, and we have to really live
Yeah,
what's around us?
you're so smart. That's the characteristic of life. Isn't it?
I don't want to be crazy. I'm not saying that everyone's a parasite. Everyone is a parasite.
I'll say it.
Yeah, everyone is a parasite from one.
Every living thing lives off of other living things. Yeah,
We're not better than the virus.
you know better than a virus. I don't know about that, but
I'm a little smart.
you share that characteristic. Because you eat plants, you eat animals, you live on other living things. Other living things must die so you can live.
And then people, some people can be a virus. There's some people who come into a room and infect the whole room with nonsense or happiness. Like, it's not unknown.
That's very common,
They do have the parasites.
which you said infects the whole room. What's that actually called?
Success.
Contagion. That's actually a big part of what we're talking about. We have all these viruses, but how contagious are they? Most of them are not very contagious at all. They're just there. But some are really contagious, and we're talking about AIDS, which is somewhat contagious. Ebola seems to be the most contagious virus I ever heard of.
Yet it's not airborne.
Pardon?
Just being sarcastic, I said, yet it's not airborne.
Yet it's not airborne. Said who?
That's why I said I was being sarcastic.
Okay, well, we need to talk about that. And then AIDS, Ebola, and emerging viruses. Okay, well, let's go over this. What is AIDS? I changed the way it was written up here. Why did I change it? Okay, so the abbreviation, what do the letters stand for? No.
It's the
Oh, two letters.
Syndrome.
But what does the A stand for?
autoimmune.
No.
Oh, yeah,
Acquired immune deficiency syndrome. In other words, here's someone who has a competent immune system who acquires an immune deficiency caused by a virus. Okay? And so what happens when a person's immune system becomes deficient?
They die.
From what? They die from infections, from bacteria, other viruses, parasites, yeast, fungus. And what else does the immune system do besides fight infection? What does it do? No, white blood cells are a part of the immune system.
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
What does the immune system do besides protect you from infections?
rebuilds.
It protects you from cancer. They got two big killers. You have cancer, which are your own cells that become your enemies. And then you have other cells that are floating around, some of which can cause a problem for you. So your immune system is to protect you against external threats called infections and internal threats, which are your own cells becoming cancerous. But what does the immune system do if one of your cells becomes cancerous? That kills it. Okay, so some of the cells in your immune system, you mentioned white blood cells, well, some of those cells are called natural killers. What do you think natural killer cells do? They go around killing things. Anything that is not supposed to be there gets killed. So when your immune system is functioning well, you can breathe in viruses all day long. You can touch things that have bacteria, you eat food that's contaminated. As long as your immune system is working fine, anything that is an enemy gets killed within minutes.
So I guess that the immune system can potentially turn on itself by killing things because it becomes a natural killer. Like you have a disease, now it wants to kill it off, and so it eventually ends up killing you, or does it know?
Yeah, this term already came up, autoimmune.
So it messes it up.
So this is where the immune system is making a mistake. In other words, if you had an armed policeman walking the streets, he's got a 44 Magnum, what do you want him to be able to determine? The bad guys from the good guys. Okay, well that's what your immune system also has to be able to do. The good guys would be your own healthy cells. Leave them alone. Do not kill them. The bad guys would be the bacteria or the viruses that come in, or the cells that turn bad and become cancerous. Kill them. So as long as your immune system is clear about that, then everything's fine. When your immune system is not clear about that, and your immune system starts killing its own healthy cells, that's called an autoimmune disease. Okay. So now,
2 questions. Is that why people who have AIDS are more susceptible to cancer?
well, the immune deficiency, so-called AIDS, causes cancer because your immune system is not working, so then cells become cancer. So AIDS patients die from infections and cancer.
And where is the immune system?
Good question. Okay, so somebody quickly point to your immune system.
It's a-
This is really a smart group. This is the first time I ever had that question asked, and you got it right. The immune system is not like your cardiovascular system, where you point to your heart, it's right there, or your liver is right there, your kidneys right there. The immune system isn't right there. The immune system is actually, there is no immune system. The truth about the immune system is it's not a system. The truth about the immune system is it's an alliance of all systems. So when you end up talking about immunity, you end up including every part of the body in some aspect relating to immunity. So the immune system is like a defense alliance. It's like NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or some other defense treaty among nations. It's an alliance, and that alliance has to be in good working order. Otherwise, there's a problem. Okay, so what's the history of AIDS?
1980s.
1980s?
Less, the dictionary definitions.
Okay, well, what does that mean? That means the first case was diagnosed in St. Louis in 1981. So they say. Although there was a prior case, or cases, in Zaire in the 60s, and even the 50s. So they say. Okay, what else about AIDS?
Didn't it originate as Marburg disease, created in Germany? And I know one of
No,
the, is Marburg disease different?
Ebola
was
was
Marburg
originally
disease.
called Marburg's agent, is actually what it was referred to.
Okay.
Part of what we're talking about here, and the reason why the information might be a little fuzzy, especially historical, how easy is it to detect the virus?
I guess not very easy.
It's not very easy, for the simple reason it's very, very small. So how would you actually see one? How would you actually see one?
See AIDS, see HIV.
Any virus.
Symptoms.
No, I mean, actually see it.
Actually see it.
Microscope is not powerful enough to see a virus.
You see it because you made it. And so when you created it, you saw it.
Yeah, but how did you see
You
it
see
to
it
make
with
it?
an atomic microscope?
Not an atomic microscope, an electron microscope.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so you need an electron microscope that you use instead of light beam, because some viruses are so small, they can't even be resolved in visible light. They're smaller than the frequency of the light that you're using to try to see it with. So you use electron scanning microscopes and other very sophisticated equipment to be able to detect the actual presence of a virus. So what does that mean? Have you ever seen an electron microscope?
In public school.
You have? Okay. It's not the kind you had in your biology class in 10th grade.
I have.
You have that?
You had an electron microscope?
No, I worked with one this summer.
Oh,
She's the only physics major.
No engineer.
So what is the significance of the fact that you need an electron microscope and other sophisticated equipment to detect viruses? What's the significance of that?
That those with money, that those like that are have the connections maybe to have to get to that like electron lights microscopes can only see those viruses.
Yeah, I mean, an electron microscope would probably cost a few $1 million, I would imagine. Yeah, so you have to have money, so it means you have to have money. What else do you have to have?
It's like the ones that created they have total control over because they're the only ones that know where or how to find it. Like they hid a treasure, but they're the only people with the map. They actually know what to look for and where to look for it. So even if the disease went somewhere else, other people wouldn't actually know what they're looking at or looking for. It's like the creators define it.
Okay, so what she's saying, if I understand, you're saying that, why don't you say what you said again?
I can't.
Well, that's good, so say it shorter. You use
Okay.
way too many words,
It gives the creators.
The creators, who are you talking about?
We're talking about AIDS though, we're talking about Ebola.
Oh, okay, we know about AIDS, okay, all right.
So like Dr. Gallo and the scientists who worked with him.
Okay, so Robert Gallo.
Robert Gallo.
Who is the inventor of the
AIDS.
AIDS virus.
Yes.
He has the patent, along with a French doctor, Luc Montagnier.
They also have a patent to the vaccine for the.
The other patent is the test for the virus. And the science of it, the science that produces the test is also the science that produces the detection or the diagnosis, which is also the same science that produces the virus itself. It's all the same thing. You just call it different things when you look at it from different points of view, but it's the same information. So, finish with what you were saying.
So what I was saying is that, I forget that, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know how to make it simple.
Okay, 1, 2.
What you said, I just trying to figure out what you said. I think you said something great. Is that the virus is detected, that the people who actually own the microscopes are the only ones that can detect the virus, so they probably are the ones that create the virus. And no average person would sit there and be able to run a test and say, oh, you have HIV. That you only have to know the same powers that be that create the virus to detect the virus because they gave you the virus.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. In other words, the technological sophistication that is required to detect a virus, to create a virus, to diagnose a virus, leaves most of the human family out because you do not have that equipment. You do not have laboratories. So therefore, essentially what we're talking about is the ability to make a diagnosis. So let me just say, if we're talking about AIDS in Africa, we're talking about Ebola in Africa, In Africa, there is no ability to make a diagnosis. The kind of sophisticated equipment that we are talking about does not exist in Africa. Why?
We don't allow them to have laboratories. Or they don't have a way to produce it.
Yeah, it's policy that I call technological apartheid. Certain types of computers, electron microscopes, other types of sophisticated technology is not allowed in Africa. They cannot buy it. It is not a matter of they don't have enough money. They have enough money. They're just not allowed to have it. So therefore, those who are allowed to have it are the only ones who are allowed to make a diagnosis.
Who has the power to tell these people that they're not allowed to buy these electronic microscopes and whatever it is that they need?
Well, this is international law.
So who's Africa's representative to say that this isn't fair?
Well, I mean, ask the Africans. I mean, they know who their representatives are, but they have not, as of yet, been able to overcome the policy of technological apartheid. For example, here's a clear example. You all remember President Clinton? Yeah, he was president, right? When you were little. Okay, so the country of Sudan, the biggest country in Africa, decided that they were going to violate the technological apartheid and they were going to begin to produce their own pharmaceuticals, their own drugs. What was President Clinton's response?
Black Hawk Down? Is that when the Black Hawk Down?
Sending the troops.
Yeah, he said he sent a cruise missile and destroyed the factory. Said they were practicing chemical warfare. It was a chemical warfare plant. And what they were actually making was antibiotics, anti-malarial drugs, simple things like Tylenol and ibuprofen. The simple thing. But it was a violation of policy. Africa is not allowed to do that.
And if we look at the bigger picture of it, we look at a country nation or group of nations that has been historically the most technologically advanced people on the planet. And now they're in a dark age where there's no space program, there are no laboratories, there's no industry that most people can point to and say, other than maybe like.
This was made in Africa.
Yeah, I know that. I was just going to say a garment. I'm saying like something, technology. I've never bought anything. I've never bought a watch that even said it was made. I think still.
No, it's not allowed. It's not allowed.
And so when you think about her question about why would the nations not do anything, it's almost like if I have all the money and I make an agreement amongst ourselves that we're not going to sell what we have to you. Like if I sell watches and I said, well, we decide that you don't get to buy my watch, there's no representative that can make me do it because we live in a capitalist world that I don't have to do anything with my money or my goods that I don't want to. So if I want to sell you a John Deere machine so that you can farm better, I don't have to sell you my Deere.
And so they don't.
They don't.
So now what is the name of this policy? What is the actual name of it?
Foreign policy.
Well, it's foreign policy, but what is the actual title? You know, like you know about the Monroe Doctrine and the Bush Doctrine and all of these things. So what is this policy called?
I call it the live white supremacy and black freedom.
They don't call it that. Now, what they call it is no more Japans. No more Japans.
Selling and stuff, making them great.
In other words, they consider that a mistake was made to allow a non-white country, namely Japan, to industrialize. And you see what happened. They got uppity, and then you had World War II. Because they decided that since they were an industrialized power in the Pacific Basin, that they had a right to have influence in China and Korea and the rest of the Pacific Basin. And in fact, that had been claimed already by America and the European powers. So the policy is no more Japan's. So that's why there was a war against Argentina maybe 20 years ago. Why? Because Argentina had signed an industrial agreement with Iraq to begin to produce aircraft. Well, that's against the policy. You're not allowed to do that. Okay, so Argentina got bombed, and of course, later on, Iraq got destroyed. You're not allowed to do that. That's why Iran is under attack right now, because they're on the verge of nuclear power, which would mean that they would be a sophisticated industrial nation, and that's not allowed, because they're not white. So that's the policy.
Well, how did China get past the policy?
Okay, tell us how China got past the policy, which is the only way anybody has ever gotten past the policy.
No, because the US owes China like more than anyone else in the world right now.
Yeah, but that's now. That was, when did China start to industrialize?
Well, they were denied military, after the war, the Second World War.
I think now.
And they.
Okay, Mao comes into the picture what year? 1949.
Didn't they make a policy that they kick out all foreign influence?
Okay, so what is a policy that kicks out all foreign influences and people who are oppressing you? What is that called?
It's called war.
It's called war. All right, so that's how you get out from under the policy. You have to fight a war, and you have to destroy the people who are destroying you. In fact, if you want to take a longer look at history, that's what the American Revolution was all about. Because the policy that we're enunciating, that's British policy. British policy says we are the home country, we are the industrialized country, you are the colony. You send us cotton, we will manufacture it into finished cotton goods and send it back to you at a high price. You are not allowed to make your own clothes. So today, Africa, you can send us from Nigeria, you can send us the oil, the crude oil, you're not allowed to refine it into jet fuel yourself. You can't do that. You have to send it to us and we'll send it back to you at a high price.
If China had this war and everything happened, and then eventually it got better and became a very powerful industry, why hasn't that happened with Haiti?
With Haiti?
Yeah, that had the.
They lost the war.
But the Haitian revolt was successful.
They won a battle. Yeah, they won a battle. They lost the war. Huh? Somebody said it. The war to survive. This is a planet that we live on with other living things, everything in competition with everything else. So the question becomes, how worthy are you to survive? You don't have a natural right to survive. You have to win survival. Through conflict, struggle, competition. So Haiti won a battle in the war, that's great, but you gotta win a war. Then what happens after you win a war? What must you be able to do? Rebuild, that's part of it, but.
To make that maintain and be able to protect your win, because at any given time.
Right,
Someone still is back.
just as you have to win a war, you have to be able to win peace. Because you have to have so much strength that people will leave you alone, because if they mess with you, you're hurt. So that's how you win the peace. You can't just win the battle and think that you got it made in the shade. No, you don't. That's just the first step. You have to have a deterrence. Otherwise, people will come and take what you have. If you can't control it, they'll take it. Why shouldn't they?
That's like the war of 1812.
Pardon me?
Like the war of 1812, when Great Britain tried to retake the United States.
Of course.
That's what they did.
Well, not in 1812.
Is that principle true in everything in life? I mean, are you saying that that's a principle?
That's exactly what I'm saying. In other words, if you don't eat your vegetables, you won't eat your right food, okay, well then something else will start to eat you. Because you weaken yourself through poor nutrition. So now you're vulnerable to viruses and bacteria and anything that comes along, it will eat you because you didn't eat what you should have eaten. So life feeds on life. You don't have a thief for broccoli. I should eat this because it deserves to live just as much as I do. No, you eat it. You don't have any sympathy for fish and chickens. You eat them. Some people do. Yeah, so the chickens like you because you're a vegetarian. That's my man. All people should be like him. That's not Jesus, man. You know. I imagine pigs love Muslims. You ain't got to worry about them, they gonna eat us. It's them Christians going to
Tearing up.
Yeah, so life, so it's a principle in life. You live in a world that is teeming and full of life. Each type of life is waging war, you could say, against all the other types of life. And so you have to be strong enough to survive and overcome all of your enemies. If you're not strong enough to overcome your enemies, then your enemies, what? Overcome you. That's simple. So the Native Americans, that they had all of this territory, what did they have?
Protection.
Right, they did not have the means to protect themselves from the Europeans. Africa, same thing. You had all of that wealth and all of this, and what did you have? You did not have the ability to protect yourself. So they came and took you over and sold you. It would make you work for us. Simple.
But you have to build civilization.
And we're not going to let you later on go back and build your own. Never. Not unless you defeat us. Now, if you defeat us and kick our butt, then we have to go along with it. But you ain't doing that yet. You don't have no heart to fight us. So meanwhile, we're looking at what you got and how to get it. If you can't protect it, and you can't, and we'll hit you with something, you can't even tell you have it until we tell you.
I think it goes back to, almost referring back to a prior statement, we were talking about how what is right, and how I think the general consensus is that things shouldn't happen because it's not right. And that just should be the rule of law, like what's right should happen. And you're trying to be the best good person that you can possibly be. And then you're competing with someone who's trying to be the best, worst person they could possibly be. And so you're not even thinking that this guy in the room is trying to outperform you on how bad and how messed up they can be. So you sleep on that guy. You know, he can become your friend, he can become your house. Before you know it, he has the house, he's no longer your friend. And that's sometimes when we look at colonists or these big historical figures, this wasn't just one person. These were a group of people who decided that we're taking over everything, not everything, like we want it all. And we don't have any care for women, children, babies, what's fair, what's right, or God, or any of that. Other stuff that we preaching, we just want to be the best, worst person.
Okay. So what did Cecil Rhodes say about that? You just paraphrased Cecil Rhodes. What did he say about it?
What is it? He didn't Memphis, that's me. I know he took over Rhodesia or created Rhodesia.
It's named after him, or it was. Now, but his mission was that this planet, well, first he said, if you are an Englishman,
You have a burden, the white man's burden, or is that?
no. That if you are an Englishman, you have already been blessed beyond any other race of people on the earth. And so then the mission of Cecil Rhodes, who was a knight of the British Empire, was to see to it that in every corner of the world is English. English people, English language, English culture, English civilization. And all other people and all other languages and all other cultures eliminated. So that's the game plan. So unfortunately, you don't look too English. Even though you speak English, you don't look English.
That reminds me of what Prince Philip said. He said if he ever had the chance to be reincarnated, he would come back as an infectious disease to help with depopulation of the world.
Yes, exactly.
It's crazy.
So now, go ahead.
I was thinking like the word aid, like we think of like financial aid is that time of year and how we're doing all the aid that we did, like welfare aid, how great it would be to get aid to do something. Then like they flip it on its head, like AIDS, this stuff is supposed to help you, but who's it supposed to help? It's the ones who want to destroy the planet. It's a great aid, but somehow AIDS, maybe I was wrong, AIDS has become the passe genetic warfare. Because when I was younger, everybody's saying, even famous people were getting AIDS. Now, if you find someone who says, yesterday I came back and I had AIDS, it would be like, oh my goodness, like, where did you get it from? How did it happen? There's no one who says, maybe I'm just out of it. AIDS is just out of style. Now it's evolved.
Actually, it's not. How many people on the planet are infected with the AIDS virus?
Well, I'm talking about in America.
In America.
DC guys,
How many people in DC are infected with the AIDS virus?
No, DC used to have the highest population of black with AIDS virus.
Well, Washington DC is the AIDS capital of the United States.
wow.
Well, it is the capital.
Well, but it's only 600 and some thousand people.
Look at these hospitals we have. You want to do genetic warfare, DC is like perfect.
Well, the truthful answer to the question I asked, how many people are infected with AIDS in Washington DC, is an unknown question. You can look it up, and what they will say, and what they've been saying for the last 20 years, is approximately 5% of the population of the District of Columbia is HIV positive. That's probably not true. And the reason that you don't know the answer, the reason I don't know the answer, is because there is no public health any longer, not only in the District of Columbia, but in the whole country. If there was actually public health, and there was actually a serious effort to control an epidemic, what would you do? Say if you were the public health czar of America, or the public health czar of the world, how would you get control of AIDS or any other epidemic? What was the first thing you would do?
Control it.
See how many people have it.
See how many people have it. By doing what? Testing. You would test everybody, and you would find out the people who are infected and the people who are not. Then what would you do? Well, AIDS is not a disease that needs to be quarantined. It's not all that contagious.
Give them medication.
Yeah, so here's the people who need medication. So you would treat them. And the people who are not infected, they don't need medication. They just need to know what to do so that they don't become one of the infected. That would be effective. So when did you have your AIDS test?
I would be afraid to have one because I would be afraid they would give it.
How would you get them all the time? You go into, they just do AIDS thing, they swab your mouth.
Well, but it's not mandatory, is it?
No.
No. That's what it means to not have public health.
Don't they say it's unethical?
Of course they say that. Of course they say that. Yeah, they say it's unethical to discriminate and find out who's infected. Because they have a violation of their human rights.
You're not publicizing yourself, so just taking that.
Okay. I'm just saying, that is what they say.
So they make it unethical to gather information.
Yes, say it's better for you. Now, was looking up, so the official number for the last 20 years, 5% of the District of Columbia is HIV infected. The majority of the people who are HIV infected do not know that they are. Here's ethics. If you've ever been to an emergency room in the District of Columbia and they drew blood, guess what one of the tests is that they drew? HIV. They didn't tell you the results though. Because it would be a violation of your human rights.
They know how to treat you, all the patient was.
No. So in other words, what are we talking about here? We're not talking about public health, we're talking about secret health. Somebody knows that you're infected. You don't know. For example, in the DC jail, I don't remember now, it's been so many years, but every day there are something like 100 or so prisoners who get released. They're at the end of their sentence. They're being released back home. Part of the exit procedure from the DC jail is HIV test. So they know which inmates leave the institution infected. They don't tell the inmate or the former inmate. They don't tell him or her. They send them back into the community. Why? Okay. So if you say, well, how effective is AIDS? Well, very effective. There's probably been something on the order of 500 million infections. It has an overall mortality rate of what? What would be the mortality rate? How many people die of AIDS?
Everybody said that.
Well, that's kind of a trick question because you have to say, in how much time?
No one dies.
But if you said how many premature deaths are due to HIV? How many people with HIV will die prematurely? Yes. All of them. 100%.
Whoa, I don't get that. I don't get it. What's being said?
Okay. How old are you? You're 20?
25.
25. Okay. What's your life expectancy at age 25? How long do you expect to live? Well, if you went to apply for life insurance, they have tables. They would look on those tables and they would tell you what your life expectancy is. Young black male, don't smoke, don't drink. So your life expectancy is something like 74 years.
7 years, 4 years from 25?
No. He has 50 more years. Assuming that he lives the typical American life.
What about how people?
Well, I'm going to say, if the assumption here is that you are the typical average Joe American. You go to McDonald's 3 times a week, and you drink vodka on the weekends. So then you would typically be expected to live since the age 74. Now, if you smoke and do all kinds of other stuff, okay, your life expectancy is less. Now, suppose you ended up with HIV, then what would your life expectancy be?
Say about 30 years.
40.
Yeah, maybe 40, 45. You might have 15, 20 years to live with the disease, taking drugs. Okay, so what is the cost of HIV drugs per year for each person? And if you were receiving antiretroviral therapy.
I'm taking a lot of drugs every day, so it just costs a lot of money eventually.
Yeah, so how much would you think would be the bill? What would be?
10 to 20,000 a year.
Closer to 20. 20,000. That's just the drugs, and then all of the blood work and all of that. You know, with,
That's not
you would say the average HIV person is generating maybe $40,000 a year in medical expenses. And if the average life expectancy with antiretroviral drugs is 20 years, then that's, what is that? $800,000. So each HIV infected person is worth almost $1 million to the medical industry. That's not bad, right? You're gonna die anyhow, so we might as well make money off of you. Right? That makes sense, right? Yeah, that's good, right? That's the
That's not good.
What do you mean it's not good? That's a lot of money. This also translates internationally. Do you remember when Clinton and then Bush, they announced U.S. AIDS, I forget what it was called, but anyhow, it was America's AIDS program for Africa.
Free drugs.
Yeah, so so like hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars going to Africa to fight AIDS. None of the money went to Africa. Where did the money go? It went to the pharmaceutical companies to pay for drugs to ship to Africa. Then when it arrives in port, then some corrupt official, he takes all of the stuff. Okay, you really want this, now you have to pay me. If you have money, you pay for it. If you don't have money, you die. Okay, that's how it started. So what are we sizing up here?
Well, some of these things don't seem like institutionalized oppression. It doesn't seem like I mean, it seems just like individual, like, I guess my idea when I think of like systematic oppression, and it seems more just like selfishness from like one or two people.
Who are the one or two people?
Just whoever has power at that moment.
Who? Who is doing this? Who decided that there should be no public health policy in America?
I'm not sure.
Those in charge?
Well, who was in charge? Who actually decided? I mean, this is actually the policy. Somebody actually decided. Who? We're naming names now. I mean, this is real history. You actually lived this.
People had money since slavery time.
When Franklin Delano Roosevelt was president, he built the public health sector in America. That's where you got DC General Hospital, and wherever you were from, there was a general hospital. Okay, Franklin Delano Roosevelt had a policy of public health. If you are sick, you should have a community hospital that you can go to. They will take care of you whether you have money or not. That's public health. And if there's an epidemic in the disease, then the government, as a part of its mandate from the population, has to protect them from whatever the epidemic might be. That's public health. And we will take all measures necessary.
So who's the point there?
Yes.
Bush?
No, before Bush.
Reagan.
Before Reagan.
Nixon.
Nixon. Dick Nixon. In other words, what was wrong with public health from the point of view of Nixon was it's public. We want private health care, not public. So then you get managed care, HMOs, all of these health care plans, and now it has evolved into what we call Obamacare. And Obamacare is just a tax to pay for drugs.
And they tax poor people.
Of course, everybody gets taxed. It's fair. Well, it wouldn't be fair if you didn't tax everybody.
Not necessarily.
It wouldn't be fair. Tax the rich and the poor alike.
No. Tax those same people.
Socialists. Socialists. So now, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna ask, why do you think that Nixon decided? Why?
Oh, okay, so the year is 1969. What happened in 1969 related to AIDS?
Gallo was born. Related, you more civic stuff.
Okay, well, no, I'm being purposely vague, just to see whether you know.
1969 related to.
Okay, who was the leading freshman senator from the great state, not senator, congressman from the great state of Texas?
George
Herbert Walker. Yes, George Herbert Walker Bush, freshman congressman from Texas. And so he holds a symposium in Congress where he invites, what's this guy's name? I can't remember, but the leading eugenicist, who's the guy that coined the phrase population bomb? From California, from Berkeley.
I didn't know.
But anyhow,
Can you find that?
Bush holds a symposium in Congress and invites the leading eugenicists, who used to be called Nazis, to give an address before Congress about the need for population control, population reduction. At the same time, in 1969, Dr.
Is it David Brower?
No,
Paul Eldridge?
Paul Early.
Early.
D.M. MacArthur. You can find this in the congressional record. If you go to the House Subcommittee on Appropriations, you can find the testimony of Dr. D.M. MacArthur from Fort Detrick, Maryland, where he said, I'm paraphrasing, that we have developed a virus that is refractory to any known therapies and is destructive of the human immune system. And so he was before Congress requesting $10 million to complete the research, which was granted. And then following that, then Richard Milhouse Nixon made a international speech where he declared that the United States of America would no longer be involved in biological warfare research. And that all biological warfare research in the United States was being shut down. Translate what that actually means.
Being privatized.
No.
It's being privatized?
Well, I mean, here we're talking about Richard Nixon, who says we are stopping our research in biological warfare. What does that actually mean?
We're starting,
That means we're
starting
really
now.
starting now.
our research is complete.
Yes, you know what?
And because he says that we shut it down, then it means everything becomes secret because we're not doing it. If anybody says we're doing it, then the public record will show that the President of the United States said we're not. So anybody that finds out that we really are is a crackpot, conspiracy theorist. Because everybody knows it's the policy not to do it. And we're not doing it.
That's what they just said about NASA too. We're stopping our space program. So
Exactly.
what's really going on?
And so then it becomes privatized so that private corporations actually carry out the work of the government, except this is sort of a different topic, but how private are private corporations?
Not too private, because they still have to get inspected by departments of health, departments of education, things like that.
We're talking about ownership, not inspection.
Most private corporations are owned by public institutions, so like, by the way the fact they pay taxes makes them.
Exactly. If you look at the major shareholders for pharmaceutical companies, what you would find is it's pension funds of the government. So the majority shareholders of private corporations is the government through pension funds. So guess who controls private corporations? The government.
What do you mean, pension funds are the primary shareholder?
Okay, you have a job, right? So you pay, they take something out of your check every payday for your retirement, right? Okay, it's invested in a fund. It has a name, and then that pension fund gets invested in the stock market. And they buy what seems to be good stocks. And that builds up over time, and that's your retirement fund. Well, that's a government-controlled fund. The person who runs your retirement fund is a government employee. And basically, he follows the guidelines that such people get. That's what they should buy and what they should not buy. So obviously, your retirement fund, being a respectful investment authority, would never invest in speculative stocks, would never ever invest in anything that isn't safe. It would only invest in things that are government approved, that are going to make a sure profit. So how would the government ensure that a pharmaceutical company makes a profit? By seeing to it that people are sick. So all the other policies of government would tend to be geared towards making people sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker, so they need more and more drugs because that makes the stock go up and that feeds the pension fund. So do you see how you're a part of the problem?
They also would make sure that all the drugs go through, that they actually are FDA approved.
Exactly.
A lot of good things aren't FDA approved, but actually do work.
Yeah, so you find out, I forget what the percentage is, but a very high percentage of FDA approved drugs turn out to be dangerous.
Yeah, they
But
are.
how do they get through the inspection process? It's because it's not really a true inspection process. Then even further, of course, here's a pharmaceutical company that makes a vaccine, like
HPV.
I'm thinking of the one against anthrax. And the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Crowe, started a pharmaceutical company that manufactured an anthrax vaccine. Only nobody needed an anthrax vaccine because nobody ever gets anthrax. Until when?
Yes, I sent it in the mail.
So they sent it in the mail after 9/11. Then all of a sudden, members of Congress who were going to vote against the Patriot Act, all of a sudden they get a letter that's laced with anthrax.
This case.
So that lets them know which way to vote, right? Yeah, so then they learn how to vote because they don't want any more anthrax. But just in case you get more anthrax, here's a company that's a part of the military industrial complex that makes an anthrax vaccine. Good for profits, especially if the government comes out and say it's mandatory. Everybody has to have it. What kind of profits would that mean for that company? So that's how the game is played. I'm sort of using AIDS as the prime example because it's more evolved and worked out. But that's essentially how the game is played. Now, what we're actually talking about is fascism. Because anytime you have a cozy relationship between private corporations and government, where they basically work hand in hand, that actually is the functional definition of fascism. That's what fascism is like, where you think that you, as an individual citizen, you think that it's a government of, by, and for the people, would that be nice? No, it's of, by, and for the corporations. Okay? And then when the Supreme Court ruled that a corporation can give unlimited political campaign contributions, well, you got Obama in the White House because you sent him $10. No, that's not what got him in the White House. The money came from Wall Street, from the corporations, and that's where we are now. So now, let's see if we can tie all of this together. AIDS comes out of Fort Detrick, Maryland, right up the street. It's appropriated the necessary money. The government phase of biological research disappears, it goes underground, in other words. Private corporations are enlisted to continue the work. One of those corporations was a company named Litton Biomedics. So Litton Biomedics got the contract from the Department of Defense to field test HIV. So in other words, here you have something in the laboratory that seems like it's going to work, but what you have to do, you actually have to test it on the human population. So they chose Zaire as the country where they would do the field testing.
Why?
Why? Well, because their puppet, Mobutu, is there, so they put him in power, so they can go anytime they want to and tell him what to do. So anyhow, when they went to Mobutu to say, we want to field test HIV in your country, in the province of northeastern Zaire, Mobutu's had the gall to say no. Can you imagine that? A CIA puppet saying no? But he said no. So then what did they do? They detonated Marburg agent in a little village near a river called Ebola. This was in 1976 now. We've come from 1969 to 1976. So in 1976, you had the first outbreak of a hemorrhagic fever, meaning a fever associated with bleeding, in a little village near a river called Ebola in Zaire. And the virus that was isolated from these people in this village, they had a 90% mortality rate, killed just about everybody. They gave the virus the name of the river that was next to the village. So now we call it Ebola. We don't like to call it Marburg because where's Marburg?
Germany.
In Germany. Okay, so if you call it Marburg, then you might say, well, why were they doing that in Marburg, Germany? And then you would trace it all the way back to the Nazis, and then you would find out that the Nazis were working with hemorrhagic fevers, and then after World War II, Kissinger and everybody, they took the Nazi scientists and took them to Israel, and took them to the United States and other places so they could continue their research. Because that's what we're actually talking about is a global Nazi agenda. If you sum all of this up, what is it? It's just a continuation of Nazism.
Why didn't they just use Marburg's agent as their depopulation device? Yeah, that's what it is.
Well, they did use it then, didn't they? And there have been like 20-some other outbreaks. But there's a problem with biological weapons. There's a problem. What's the problem with Ebola? From a strategic point of view, and why it might not be the best, especially with a mortality rate of 90%, why it might not be the best weapon. Well, that's another factor, the so-called blowback factor. If you spray a virus into the atmosphere, it can blow back in your face. But no, there's another factor here.
Well, if it's like made so pharmaceuticals can profit and like, charge them for the vaccines and stuff, they die too quickly. So many people die, then there's not enough time to profit.
Well, that's part of it too, that they die so quickly, you never get a chance to make a buck off them. But the actual reason is, if I get dead within 2 weeks, I didn't have a good enough chance to spread it. So when you have an agent like Ebola that kills rapidly, it's not good for starting a big epidemic. It dies out too quick because it can't spread fast enough. So therefore, this so-called Marburg Ebola agent in 1976 was not good enough. It was not good enough to actually ignite a global epidemic to kill the necessary number of people. So even though AIDS is slower, it's actually better because people live long enough to infect how many other people? See, so it can spread. It didn't spread out of that little village because before anybody could run to the next village, they were all dead. So it doesn't spread. Until, what would you do if you were the frustrated scientist trying to develop a killer virus and it kills people too fast so it can't spread? What would you do?
You would vaccinate them against that virus, therefore giving them another virus that will still kill them, but kill them at a slower pace. That will now kill from the inside. You don't have to catch it because they already got it.
Well, that might work. I'm not sure if they did that. What did they do?
Make it airborne?
Okay, well, make it airborne, that's a huge step. But essentially, you could say the virus in 1976 was very crude. And all that's happened over the years is it's been perfected. It's been weaponized. And one of the processes that it has undergone is, I don't know if I can spell it right. That's probably not spelled right. Lyophilization. Does anybody know what that means? Lyophilization?
It works better with the natural patterns of life.
Okay, does anybody know what freeze-dried coffee is? Freeze-dried coffee or freeze?
Oh, it's activated when it hits liquid.
Water.
Yeah, water.
So lyophilization is a process by which you take something that is like a living thing and they call it freeze drying, where you withdraw all the water out of it. Now it's dormant until you add water. So you add water to these dry crystals, now you got a cup of coffee, okay? So now, if you have a virus that is deadly, he mentioned the blowback effect, how would you even handle it? Who could you actually get to handle this and take it somewhere? They'd be scared. But if it's lyophilized, now it's safe. You could transport it. As long as it's in a watertight container and no water touches it, it's inert. Until you put it in a drone, or you put it in a plane, or anything, and just release it into the atmosphere. Now you can jumpstart an epidemic anytime you want to.
So why did they choose now?
Why would they choose now? Why would you think? What is going on in the world now, 2014? The fall of America, somebody said that? Okay, what does that mean? What is the fall of America like? Since you're experiencing it, you should actually know what's going on.
Civil tensions.
Civil tensions. Always civil tensions.
Well,
Compared to the 60s, there's no civil tension. Black folks ain't angry nowadays. You have the most passive group of black people I've ever seen in my life. They don't do anything. That Facebook. When's the last time we had a riot? When's the last time?
We had Ferguson.
How many people got killed? They didn't even burn the place down. I mean, come on, that was a picnic. I mean, this country has seen some serious so-called riots, insurrections. I mean, it burnt Detroit to the ground. Newark burnt to the ground. Washington, D.C., this area where you are right now, burnt to the crisp on, no, 1969. This, U Street, all that burned up. Why did they burn it? Because they killed King. They killed your hero. So they said, oh, okay, you're gonna kill our hero, we're gonna burn your capital down. And the whole world will see it on fire. That's what you get for killing King. No, no, they kill people all the time. You don't burn nothing. So, I mean, so civil tension, there ain't no civil tension. Even white people are passive nowadays.
You got a lot of them buying guns.
Well, they buy guns, they don't shoot nobody. When's the last time somebody got shot? Negroes shoot Negroes, I know that. But you don't, they don't shoot nobody. So again, we were talking about some of these things last week, where there's a virtual reality, then there's a reality. So most people now live in a virtual reality, where they read stuff on the internet and they think it's real. You know, they think, oh, there's a real protest going on. No, you're not. You're sitting in your room in front of a computer screen, looking at images on the screen. You're not actually out in the world making anything happen. Nothing is going on out there that you're causing. For the most part, with a few exceptions. So so he said the fall of America, 2014, what is actually really going on in the world that would require such a drastic step as this to threaten the depopulation of the planet? What's going on?
I think that like when we talk about this one mentioned like fall of America, but the rise of the next empire. When we look at historically, every empire starts showing signs of cracks and another one emerging taking its place. So I guess when we talk about the Simpson effect, that I can't run the world and I'll destroy everything and take everybody with me. And Ebola is not for, I know we always think about it in terms of Black people. Actually, Black people aren't really doing anything as much, you know, you kind of really, no, agree that. And there would be no reason, Black people would be an unintended consequence, or maybe an intended consequence, but there's other people out in the world who are actually doing things. China right now is actually doing a real protest against a real government that's really doing things to it. And it's really being challenged in a real way. Unlike the Ferguson skirmish that can happen on any given set. I think Howard almost had a Ferguson skirmish a few years back over some kind of protest in front of Drew that caused more than it should have. And it looked like it was doing something, but it just was another Howard thing.
Yeah. This was just announced yesterday, that China's economy is now larger than the economy of the United States. And that was just announced Tuesday. Yeah, so what does that mean? In 2014, the United States is no longer the biggest economic power in the world. It's now China. We already mentioned the fact that started in 1949. So if you said from 1949, coming from zero on the world scene, to now be the leading economic power in the world. What does that mean?
They put us on work.
I'm sorry?
That they put in some serious work.
Yeah, they put in some serious work, but what does it mean for us? And what does it have to do with our topic? What does it have to do with the fall of America?
Is America losing its financial power, losing its financial hold over the rest of the world?
Okay, what is America's current financial power? Describe what that power is and what it does.
Military?
No, financial power.
It's us.
The military power only exists to protect the financial power.
The dollar, yeah.
Okay, but describe what America's financial power is.
What about oil?
Well,
We don't have any, like, only, like,
Federal Reserve.
no. The other thing that was announced just this week is the United States is now the leading oil producer in the world. Who was number one before then?
Yes.
Russia.
So,
Russia. I believe Saudi Arabia is third. Okay, so, but let me rephrase the question. Describe what America's financial power actually has been. What does it do? How does it function? And the other, why don't you know?
America's financial power consists of the shoulders of the corporations that it has. That's based in America, but are multinational corporations. But if you're talking about the status, right now the status is
No higher than.
higher than corporations.
Yes, because so if you had a pyramid of control, you would have, of course, the people down here at the bottom,
Wall Street International Bankers at top.
and then you would have corporations here. Then you have several other layers above corporations.
International bankers.
Yeah, you would have, yeah,
What about the Federal Reserve?
well, that's what you said, international bankers. So let's put that about here. So what is, if we identify America's financial power as the Federal Reserve banking system, just call it that. It's more than just that, but just have a term to use. Let's just say that America's financial system is the Fed. What does the Fed do?
Oh, no, I was just gonna say.
Go ahead. Then you.
I was thinking that the Federal Reserve allows the dollar, it makes the dollar, where everything has to be bought in. So like if you want to buy oil, you want to buy gold, it is a monetary system for the world. So you have to, whatever your economy says, you have to give your money to us to get our money, and our money is always going to be worth more.
Okay, and you were gonna say?
Well, I just said, I just think the power is to control the printing of the monies all over the world, in most places in the world.
Right.
They strive.
That's the essence of it. When you have the ability to print money out of thin air, that's financial power.
No, that's not.
That's financial power.
It is when you say that money is what controls the world.
Yeah, it is when you say that, but I think that anybody who's not in a deep sleep would know that, do I trust the guy who actually has money or the one who went to his computer? Like if I went to you and said, I want your shirt, let me get on my Apple and let me print you up some money and you turn it over to me. There's something wrong with the person who does that. Everyone would say, no.
Is that what Bitcoin is?
No, that's, at least a Bitcoin is backed by something. That was backed by actually nothing other than the idea that I gave you.
Yeah, could you right now go on your computer, hit some buttons and buy a shirt?
That's why the Bitcoin isn't as big as it could be.
Can you go and do that on a computer?
You could.
Of course you can.
But you already can do that with dollars.
Okay, but wait. That is the financial power, the ability to make people go along with what you call it, what? Crazy or ridiculous?
No, let me say, you have to be asleep or the financial.
You have to be asleep.
magic.
Okay, all right. So that is the financial power, to reduce human beings who are bright, intelligent, who, just have enormous potential, reduce them down to the point where they will allow someone to assign value to a piece of paper and they will base their whole life around that. That's financial power. I didn't say it made sense. I didn't say it was right. Power doesn't care whether it's right or wrong. Power has the ability to compel you to do it, whether you want to or not. Whether you agree with it or not. You say, this is stupid, well, do it anyhow. That's power. When you actually have to do it anyhow, you know it's stupid, you know it's wrong. So that is financial power. That's where the military comes in then. Someone wakes up, says, this is stupid. This is Muammar Gaddafi. You mean to tell me we're gonna pump real oil out of the ground, and then all you have to do is print some paper and give us some paper in exchange for real oil? That's real oil, and then you. Well, then you woke up from our dream. You woke up from the enchantment of our money magic. Now, send in the military. Now you have to die because you woke up. And you challenge the system. Okay, well, China is not Libya. Libya had like 3 million people. Okay, so how could a country with 3 million people defend itself against 300 million just from the United States, not to mention all the NATO countries? They didn't have a military option. Okay, but how many people does China have? About a billion. How about 2 billion? Yeah. Now. Okay, so now you don't just go bomb Beijing. What do you do with China? Pardon?
Make trees, work with them.
You give me Ebola.
Well, no, actually, no. What you do with China, you give them
Swine
SARS. But it didn't work. This was maybe 4 years ago,
Yeah,
something like that. Why didn't it work? Because China has a public health department.
They put on the mask and went to work.
Yeah.
They were like, it's still working.
And they do possess electron microscopes. So we're not depending on you to tell us what we got. We know what we got, and we know where it came from. And we know how to stop it.
So what's your question? Well, what do we do to China?
Yeah, what do we do with
I
China?
think we said last week that you instigate protest from their people, so you can weaken the government if the government depends on the people's satisfaction. So the protest that's currently going on in China could very well have been instigated by the U.S.
Yeah, I mean,
Just like they did in other countries.
Yeah, the so-called color revolutions in Ukraine and other countries. I mean, all through the social media.
Arab
You
Spring.
get people who live in virtual reality. You know, you can get them to act up.
I'll see you time. However,
Oh,
but I guess maybe my question is, like, I hate to be the person in Fall of America who was like, I don't want America to fall type thing, which I have no problem with that to a certain extent. I don't know if I'm ready. However, China, I don't know if that's necessarily a better choice. Have you ever been to Chinatown and been treated?
well, I've been to China.
I'm talking about Chinatown.
In Chinatown.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe that this is, I don't know if I would want them running the government. I think there should be, what is option C? What is the other option? So that there is no,
There's one control.
there's no China. And then like, we
There's
can
no
do
wrong.
something for any of these people running anything.
Well, option C might be.
BRICS.
What's that?
Brazil, Russia, India,
Is that
China,
in there?
and South Africa. And
South
so they're a coalition that's trying to break the cycle of being dependent on the dollar and being told what they can do and how they can trade their resources. And so they've joined up and they've tried to create their own coalition to try to overcome the powers that be. So it's another option beside the other two major ones that we usually see fighting over power.
Okay. And you actually have 133 countries who are part of the BRICS movement. And of course, the big thing that's going on right now in Washington, D.C. as we speak, they're having a big meeting to discuss the IDB. What's the IDB?
Isn't it the new, like the alternative to the dollar?
India,
The International Development Bank, to replace the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. And of course, just earlier this year, China bought
The
the
Fed.
Federal Reserve Bank.
Said China bought the Federal Reserve?
Yes,
got all of that.
yeah, I mean, they own most of the debt. Okay, and keep in mind, now the Federal Reserve Bank is a privately owned bank. So the private owners of the Federal Reserve Bank, they sold out. It's not owned by the government.
It's not a part of the government at all.
So
It's always owned, I guess it's owned by the government now.
the private bankers, or these private companies that run the United States really don't have any allegiance to the United States. If they have to pretend to be Americans, they'll pretend to be Americans, that China is now the world power, and they'll sell out to China. It's not, it's all about these private industries staying in power, not keeping a country afloat.
Exactly. And of course, most of the owners of the Federal Reserve Bank were never Americans in the first place. But the only ones that were Americans were,
JP Morgan.
the rest of them are foreigners. So America has not controlled her own money for how long? 1930s, 101 years. And so for 101 years, the American people have not had any money.
John, did it try?
Yeah, he said, the Constitution says that it's the government that should print our money. So therefore, he asserted the right of the government. He was the last constitutional, patriotic president who tried to run the country the way the Constitution said it should be run. And of course, he was let down by his Secret Service. They were supposed to protect him. And they didn't do it. Just like the Secret Service. Wasn't there a story about something?
A story, multiple
So
stories.
Mad Men got into the White House and got all around it, it was like
Or the one that shot into it.
Yeah, what is that called?
Goldilocks.
What
That's
is that
called the FOI. Forget your Secret Service.
So what is that called though? If you were in the security business, well, no, it's more than just breach. Because a breach means that I'm on security, somebody got past me. That's a breach.
It's called a threat.
Treason.
It's called security stripping. In other words, I'm in charge of your security. You're surrounded, nobody can get to you. Then one day you show up, ain't nobody to be found, you on your own.
Didn't it happen in White House?
That's security stripping, and that is a signal to the guy over there. It's okay to come in now and get him. So when you see security stripping, that's an invitation to assassination. So you could actually expect that now. Why? Why would 2014, around this time, why would that be a good time to assassinate the first African American president? Why would that make sense now? And to whose advantage would that be? Because assassinations are political acts. Someone benefits. You have to say, well, who would benefit?
I said Joe Biden.
But if you saw the latest pictures of Joe Biden, what does he look like?
He looks like that. He's old.
I haven't seen
He like a stroke.
Got a stroke,
Oh, really?
talking out of his head.
They don't send him to negotiate anything.
So I don't think it's Biden. Now when Kennedy, see, it was Lyndon Baines Johnson who was the vice president, who was a part of the conspiracy to kill Kennedy. Okay, but I don't think Biden is a part of it. I don't think so. He could be, but I don't think so. Oh, okay. So what, so why now? Why kill Obama? He's such a nice guy. Why?
There are a few reasons. I feel like one would be to kill the hope of black people who lose the look at him as a representation of hope. We do anything, not to the fact that the true colleagues that could be a one reason.
Okay, what rule did Obama just break? He broke a rule, an ironclad rule that you're not allowed to break.
Talk to get the military?
No. You can get away with that a little bit.
You tried to mess with the money?
No.
Mess with the money?
Ain't that crazy.
The land?
No. No, he criticized Israel.
What?
He's not allowed to do that.
It's ridiculous.
What do you say?
After what they did for him?
Exactly. After what they done for him, and then he's gonna open his mouth to criticize the Israelis as being unhelpful just because they massacred the people in the Gaza Strip. How dare he? So, I mean, it could be a simple reason like that. It's also more complicated than that, but that is a simple enough reason to justify it. It would be justified, right? That would be justifiable homicide, right?
In Israel, yeah.
Well, where are we?
The new Israel.
Yeah, some people would say that. You know, some people would say that America is a kind of Israel.
New Jews.
And that is run from there. Some would say that. I'm not quite sure I agree 100%, but I can see that. I can see how that would be, especially when you talk about the money. Who is the vice chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank? Bernanke's gone, replaced by a woman named Janet Yellen, who's also Jewish. But who's the vice chairman? A guy named Paul Fisher, who is a dual citizen of the U.S. and Israel, and he is the president of the Bank of Israel. It's not illegal.
Because they own companies who makes it legal.
Right.
Should be running here.
So let's sort of see if we can wrap this up. We're talking about the loss of U.S. financial power. Oh, your hand is up?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just to wrap it up.
Oh.
To sum it all up.
Oh, no, I wasn't asking. I'm not at that point.
Okay.
You anxious to leave. Okay. Why Ebola now? Why the threat against Obama now? There's a whole list of other things that are taking place. He used the term the fall of America, so you could list a whole bunch of stuff that's under that. Why now?
Because it's the end of times.
It's the end of time, but I want you to be explicit. Tell me what the mechanisms are, the wheres and the why-fors, the whys or the wherefores, and how do you say that? Who, what, when, where, how.
Who for Ebola? Everybody. What? Virus. Where?
Oh, wait. Okay. So who for Ebola? You said everybody. Everybody doesn't own Ebola. Who owns Ebola?
Oh, the CDC.
Okay, the CDC owns patents for that.
The CDC, Queen Elizabeth owns the cure.
Okay, so then QE2, Queen Elizabeth II, she owns the patent for the miracle drug for Ebola. Okay.
The what? Virus.
The what? Okay, the what?
Genetic warfare virus.
Okay, Ebola. Well, what's the bigger what? In other words, if I go into a bank with a gun, the story is not the gun.
It's murder.
What is the real story? If I go into a bank with a gun, what's the real story? What's really going on?
Murder.
That you robbed it.
I'm robbing it.
Yeah.
That's the real story. The fact that I have a Colt 45 or a Luger or AR-15, that's immaterial. Any weapon would do. The point is, I'm sticking up the bank. So if Ebola is a weapon, okay, any weapon would do. To do what? To accomplish what?
Population.
Population control.
Death and fear.
But wait. How much population control would be success? Would be a success? How much population control is needed?
85% of the population.
Oh, But
Like 10, to make an example.
10 what? 10% reduction?
Make an example.
Well, I mean, see, we don't have to guess. I mean, here's a document that you could read. National Study Security Memorandum 200 written by Henry Kissinger and Rockefeller. So in there, they actually give you the figure. That, in other words, reduce the world's population to between 1 and 2 billion.
That's like
So we're currently around 8. That means 6 or 7 have to go.
That's where I came up with 80. Sorry, that's where I came up with the generic figure. My math is probably off, but I said 85.
All right, and then in the United States, I mean, the population is 317 million. According to these people, it should only be 100. See, so these are the targets. So the question would be, can Ebola get you there? Is Ebola good enough to kill 6 billion people? I don't know. I don't know if it is or not.
Why do they want 2 billion people dead?
2 billion people dead? No, they want 2 billion people dead. That's what would be left.
6 or 7 billion.
6 or 7 million people dead. Well, because then you don't have to feed them. If they're dead, they don't eat. They don't cost anything.
Resources.
So, you know, I mean, you're talking about the people here at the top who say we want to control all of the money, all of the wealth. So if there's 8 billion people on the planet, all of them have to eat every day. That costs money. They need books to go to school. That costs money. Some of them get sick. They need medicine. That costs money. So basically, this guy is saying, well, look, I got all of the money. If I let all these people live, they're gonna need some of my money because they have all these needs.
It's easier to control depopulation, less people easier to control.
Exactly. So the vast majority of people are defined, this is Rockefeller's term, useless eaters. And they look at you and me as useless. What do you produce? What do you actually bring into the world?
More babies.
What do you build? What do you develop? What do you make as your contribution to world civilization? They look at you, well, okay, they ain't producing nothing. All they do is eat. All they do is consume. We have to pay for it. So they'd be better off dead. Useless eaters.
So, but what about their other instruments that work so well? Is what they're saying is that those failed. I'm talking about, okay, so the other 6 to 7 billion, these people are consumers and these people are buying into the trick of the dollar, or even if you replace the dollar, the panda, and so you're still getting money off of them. Yes, you're supplying things, but
Wait. When is the last time that the international bankers got money off of the American people?
Great question.
1913. You don't have any money.
so okay, so what I'm saying is where does the money that we pay into the US market go?
You
Does
don't
that just
have
go to
any
the
money.
debt?
You don't have any money.
So we're just handing back forth IOUs.
Yeah, it's not money.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about the corporations who are benefiting from that? I mean, they're benefiting something from that, or the corporations, what about their profit, their money? That's going somewhere.
Well, okay, so part of the issue here is, let's decide, say, point out the wrong.
Mhm.
It's as though, if I read what you're saying, it's as though you think that the worst wrong that these people have going for them is greed. As though that's their worst sin, that all they care about is money. No, it's not. There's things that's more important to them than money.
Resources.
Blood.
No,
Blood. Blood.
blood, death. It's more important than money. Plus, we already have all the money. You don't have any. I mean, how much gold do you have? How much land do you own? How many sheep do you have? How many cattle? How much iron ore? What do you own? Do you have any trees growing that
Yes.
converted to lumber? What do you have? And most of the things that you would claim that you have, you owe money for it. You have it on debt, you got it on credit. Well, they control all of that. So what do you have that they don't already have? So there is, we use the term money magic. So there's an enchantment that has been going on for about 100 years, where people are waltzing along thinking that they have things, thinking that they own a house, thinking that they own a car, thinking that they have clothes, thinking that they own their television set, thinking that they have a college education. Almost all of that is an illusion. You don't own your house, you don't own your car, you don't own your possession. You're actually not getting a college education. You don't have any money. It's an illusion. Call it the American dream if you want. It's an illusion. You lost your money 100 years ago, before you were born. Your grandparents were foolish enough to let people take over the money system. So you were born into a world with no money. And most of us don't even know what money is. Don't want it, really, because it actually comes with responsibility. See, so it's the end of illusion. So you say, well, why now? It's because the trick has worked. If somebody's trying to rob you blind, and they finally get your very last penny out of your cookie jar, so then that's the end of the game. There's nothing left for that game. It's reached its conclusion. So that system is over, game over. In other words, it's like going to a basketball game. Okay, you got a game clock. The clock runs out, the game is over. Don't talk about the three-point shot you just took. It doesn't count. It went in after the buzzer. So that's where we are. We're after the buzzer. So the security guards are getting ready to clear the stadium. It's time to go home. It's over. Unless you have a new game that you want to start. Do you have a new game? Or is the old game that's just finished, is that the only game you know? And you didn't even know that because you weren't really even playing. You were just watching. The real players have left. They're in the locker room. They're on the team bus. So that's why now. That's why now. So you have a desperate play, and it's not just China. It's all of these BRICS countries. They're saying, yes, we do have a new game. We do have a new game, and we're shutting down the old game. So China, for example, over the last 10 years, has bought about 2/3 of the world's supply of gold. They own almost all of the gold. India is right behind China. Russia is probably the world's biggest gold producer. So what are they doing with their International Development Bank? We are going to introduce a new currency, a gold-backed currency. Probably it will be the Chinese yuan. Yes, except Libya did not have a big enough army. So here you have Muammar Gaddafi, big ideas, correct ideas, exactly the right thing to do. Africa needs a gold-backed currency, a gold-backed dinar, but Africa doesn't have an army. You can't have money and you don't have an army. You found that out when you were in grade school. You got a pocket full of money that your mommy gave you to buy lunch, but couldn't fight. What happened to your lunch money? It fed somebody else. You didn't get to eat that. That's how the world works. So here you have Africa, all these vast resources, no army, no missiles, no tanks, no submarines, nothing. You can't defend anything. Got gold mines. Well, anybody can walk in there and just take all the gold and walk out with it. What you gonna do about it? That's how it works. So part of the competition is China wants the resources of Africa. The US and Europe do too. So China is not actually playing an imperialistic game. They're not trying to colonize Africa. They actually promote self-determination of African countries. But of course, they're looking after their interests, first and foremost. Okay? But so they are basically cutting better deals with African countries than Europe and America ever did. So it looks, and then of course with all of the US dollars, see what do you do with China? You sell them your debt. So China borrowed all of America's debt into the trillions of dollars. What do you do with trillions of dollars of debt in US currency? Well, while it's still good, you use it to buy up Africa. Or you use it to buy up anything that's for sale. So they're buying up America. In fact, they're buying up coal mines and oil fields and gas fields, farmland. There's a real estate boom in California. The Chinese are buying all of the big homes, the mansions in Hollywood, and everything for sale. Buying all the condos and
the Great Lakes are for sale.
Yeah, they bought most of the water from the Great Lakes to go to China. They got enough money to do it.
They're buying here.
They actually are. Yeah. So, so Ebola is the weapon being selected by the West to destabilize not just Africa, but to destabilize the world. If you look at the impact of Ebola, as of yesterday, there were only about 8,000 cases. And of those, less than, I think, 3,500 or so deaths. So it's not actually killing a lot of people. I mean, 3,000 people died in the World Trade Center. Each year in the United States, 36,000 people die from the flu. So we're talking about actual numbers. Ebola's not killing all that many people. So but there's a lot of media hype, so everybody's scared of it, even though it's not really killing. It hasn't killed any Americans yet, right? Not a single.
One in Texas, right?
He was an American.
He was like
Maybe he was a naturalized American. Again, I mean, it's like compared to 36,000, you're not hyperventilating over the flu, right? And that kills 36,000 every year.
If it was from Africa, they'd be hyperventilating over it.
So you think they chose Ebola virus because it kills quickly? They know that it kills quickly. You think that's why they chose?
Yeah, I think it's for shock value. Shock value. They show you somebody bleeding from the mouth and the nose and all of this. I mean, it's a shock value. So this is more a psychological operation than an actual biological attack with a weapon that's going to kill a lot of people. And it could get there again. This is the beginning stages of it. I'm not saying it won't kill millions eventually, but so far you look at it, kind of boring. It's not all that exciting. In Africa, for example, 5 million people die every year from malaria. So what's Ebola compared to malaria? Get 100 million cases every year, 5 million die. That's a real killer. Almost as many people in Africa die from tuberculosis every year.
That's still around.
Of course it is.
That's crazy.
Of course it is. Well, without any public health, it's going to be around. That costs money, so we can't have it in Africa. That costs money. Can't have it. So, through Ebola, you destabilize West Africa. The target is your country. You destabilize West Africa, especially Nigeria, because Nigeria, would you have about 200 million people now? Yeah, so according to Kissinger, if you want to read his words, he said early in the 21st century, Nigeria would become a bona fide superpower, and it would be Nigeria that would decide what happens to Africa's resources. So therefore, we need to move to destabilize Nigeria. How do you destabilize any government? You show the population that the government cannot protect you. And people lose confidence in government. If the government can't protect me, then what do I need them for? If they can't help me with my problems, what do I need the government for? Then, of course, then you throw in Boko Haram and terrorism, people cutting people's heads off, and all that kind of stuff, kidnapping school girls, and okay, it destabilizes government. The other thing, and this is very important, there are more deaths that are peripheral to Ebola than from Ebola. Why? Because if you think the guy at the supermarket that's selling your food has Ebola, are you gonna buy food from him? Because you could just, she touched the mango, she has Ebola. If I get the mango, I touch it, now I have Ebola. So I'm scared to buy the mango. So it shuts the economy down. There's an estimation that Africa is losing something like $38 billion so far economically because of Ebola. That's the real impact. It shuts the economy down. Can't ride on this bus because it's full of people. I bet somebody on here has Ebola. I'm not getting on the bus. Somebody at that hospital has Ebola. I'm sick. I should go to the hospital, but I'm not. Because Ebola's in there. I'll take my chances at home, so people die at home.
It was not doing really well.
Pardon me?
Africa was doing very well economically.
No, Africa is not doing very well.
Well, no, before.
No. No, certain parts of Africa, maybe, like Libya, was going very well. The rest of Africa, one of the major problems in Africa is malnutrition. So for the last 20 to 30 years, the nutritional status of Africans has been going down, which causes immune deficiency, loss of intelligence, loss of physical strength and stamina to support an economy. Okay, so no, overall, Africa's economy has not been doing well. And now it's even worse than that. So, anyhow, somebody summarize our topic. You ready?
Okay. AIDS are bad, and Ebola is a weapon by the West to destabilize the world. Specifically, the target is West Africa, i.e. Nigeria, Ghana. It was done, Ebola is being done by the CDC and Queen Elizabeth II. Those would be the major partners for Ebola.
The surviving Nazis.
Surviving Nazis.
They were not killed like they should have been in World War II.
And
they were allowed to escape.
This is happening now because the current system is reaching a conclusion. And yeah.
Okay, anybody else want to add to that or correct it?
We can combat genetic warfare by killing for ourselves, which means find out how to diagnose and how to treat.
Yeah, I think that one of the ways to combat genetic warfare is to first point out the wrong. First, elucidate and examine what the actual problem is so that we can ultimately come up with a solution. We can't come up with a solution to a conversation like this, or pointing out the wrong.
Okay, now, we didn't have time. I don't actually know what that means. Genetic warfare, I don't know what that means. I wouldn't call this genetic warfare. This is biological warfare. And psychological, more psychological than biological. And economic, but genetic, I don't even know what that means. We don't have time to go into it. I don't know what that means.
I just wanted to see what you thought. Have you heard about other cures for Ebola beside the ZMapp drug that they're suppressing, like the Garcinia cola? I know some Nigerian scientists are doing work, and they've come out with a few different cures, not cures per se, but it stops the replication so they can treat the person to save them.
Okay, well, what saved your life every time you had a viral infection?
A serum or an antibiotic.
No.
My immune system?
Your immune system. Okay, so how did your immune system save you from dying from influenza, or dying from the measles, or dying from chickenpox? All of which are potentially fatal, except your immune system has a way of saving you. So how does your immune system do that? Oh, in part, good nutrition necessary for strong immunity, that's true.
It identifies the problem, and it.
Okay, yeah, it finds out the wrong, it finds out what is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It goes through a deceptive atonement.
It actually
It does.
And maybe one day we'll go through all that. But your immune system has what's called an interferon system.
Is that the library of things that could be wrong?
Yeah, so you
The
have
language?
alpha, beta, and gamma interferon. And so if you wanted, so that actually turned out to be the cure for AIDS, is to use interferon. Okay, so the cure for Ebola will be the same thing.
Have you heard about like aloe vera?
Elderberry?
Aloe vera. That's right. Aloe vera leaf.
Elderberry leaf?
Aloe
Aloe vera leaf.
Aloe vera leaf. Sure. Interferon treatments.
No, it doesn't work. No, that's what works. And the reason it works is because that's how you are created. You produce interferon every time you get infected with a virus, and the reason why the virus gets stopped and does not overcome you and kill you is because your system has the ability to produce interferon. Now, the problem with Ebola is the virus replicates so fast, it takes this interferon system about 2 weeks to really kick in. Okay, so here you have a virus that'll kill you in 2 weeks. So you never get a chance to kick your interferon in. So if somebody was suspected of Ebola, just give them some alpha interferon.
What is that? Where do you get that connection?
You know, we make it. I mean, when I used to be an AIDS doctor, okay, so we used to make that. It's easy to make. It's no more difficult to make than is to make wine. It's a fermentation process. The other option, treatment option for Ebola is goat serum. You can just inject goats with infected material. The goat will produce antibodies to Ebola. Take the serum from the goat, inject it into a person. It works. That's all the ZMapp actually is a sophisticated goat serum. Yeah. So in other words, there's options to all of this. There's answers to all of it. This is not necessarily a slam dunk. It's warfare. So first of all, the first rule of war is what? According to Sun Tzu.
Know your enemy?
Know your enemy. So you have to understand, what is he trying to do? What What's he trying to do? Okay, well, I mean, it's complicated. Yeah, he's not kill you, but I mean, it's a complicated affair. Warfare is complicated. So then, once you know what your enemy's trying to do, now you can think and develop a counter strategy that would be effective. Okay, so there's a lot of things that you can do to defeat this. And you don't have to necessarily be high tech to do it. Okay? Any other comments, questions, observations?
So can everybody make sure they signed in? The sheet will be right here, and write your number as well.